In this episode, we'll be building a working windmill, expanding our farm with some greenhouses, and setting up a bakery ready to process some tasty food. So you're once again back in our farm area, and last episode we obviously worked on our barn, getting all our animals ready to be processed. And of course we also hooked up our harvester to storage down here, but we are apparently a little bit full at the moment. Now I have to spend some time, I think, maybe separating out all these different items into separate bits of storage. That harvester is making way more than I expected. Yes, I think what I will also do is get some diamond swords with mending on it, as some viewers kind of recommended. And I wasn't originally going to do it, but like I think for the sake of the animals, we should. So let me head home to grab some diamonds and some mending books. Luckily we do have 2 mending books left, although I can definitely buy some more from our villagers. Of course we just come over to our mob farm, put on some mending. Nice and simple. And if we just give the diamond sword to this, although I've just realized I think it's placed it into the item vault because I forgot to set a filter on this, so now I have to try and get it back out again. Okay, if we just put the mending thing into here and put deny list, then we can place this into here, and then hopefully now once I get the sword again, there we go. No longer throwing it away. Now I need to do that on the other side as well. And there we go. Slightly more humane. It's about as humane as you can get in Minecraft, I guess. But anyway, the main objective I think for today is to start processing some of the stuff that we're getting from both our combine harvester and our barn. I think I'm going to start with a windmill. Luckily, Create actually has windmill bearings and sail frames and stuff. We can make one with Create quite easily. Now, as for like this kind of village idea that I want, of course, I did say I was going to overtake this village over here. The only issue with like taking it over directly is that it's kind of on a hill, and as much as building on hills is kind of fun sometimes, I think the size of my buildings are going to make it way too difficult. So I think this kind of area down here is where I'm going to place most of my buildings. And I think my general overall plan is to kind of split up all the processing things into buildings that kind of make sense in a village. For example, I want to make a bakery, a butcher's, and a restaurant where the actual final foods are put together. But of course the bakery would make things like bread and pasta and maybe cakes too, and the butcher be where I actually slice up all the different meats into their respective smaller counterparts. But I do think I am going to place the windmill probably directly behind me here, where this current like set of flowers is at the moment, because I think it shouldn't be too much bigger than this bit of landmass. We'll have to see when I build it. Okay, I think that's how I generally want the base to look, and we'll have to bring out the dirt a little bit and add a little bit of a path at the front so we can go up to the building. We'll add a little door opening there, and then I think use some stripped spruce logs to add a bit of a trim on the front, and we can do that on each side. I think up here I do want some kind of floor in so we can have a bit of a balcony, make sure that looks supported from underneath. And that's the basic floor in for there, and then we need to start building up the center. For this we'll keep using our spruce logs and add some windows in between, just so we can see from the inside out. And we've just repeated that all the way around. I think I'm going to come in one more layer here, build up some more windows. And I think something along those lines is probably what I want, so I just need to repeat that. And with that bit of the tower done, I need to come up with a little bit of a roof design. I do want this to have a bit of a pointy top, so there we go. Something along those lines I think works quite well. Now I just need to actually add the sails to this windmill. But we're going to need a mechanical bearing. Nope, not a mechanical bearing. A windmill bearing. I think we should have all the stuff already. Yep, there we go. And then I also need to make some windmill sails. Don't think I have much andesite alloy in this backpack, but I should have some in this one. Yep, there we go. And I'm gonna need probably quite a lot of these, to be honest. Although it seems we need sticks, so let's head back home and go to our wood farm, which has way too many sticks. We'll just grab these. Hopefully this will be enough, but let's go find out. Okay, so let's break this block here and actually probably just head inside, and we can throw in our windmill bearing and perhaps use some girders coming out of that. Hopefully that should be enough distance, although maybe that might be a little bit too far. Let's actually push it back one more. I think I'm going to use some of these spruce planks to get the main sails in. and probably following a kind of pattern here. We have 3 block stairs, 3 block stairs, 2 block stairs, 1 block stair. And then I just need to repeat that 3 more times. And then we can actually grab our proper sails and start attaching those to the actual main structure. Although I'm not going to lie, this is a little bit difficult while on jetpack, so let me just place a platform for myself. And I think I'll make this stick out a little bit further from the actual wood. At least something along those lines. And then I just need to repeat that for all the different sails. And in unshocking news, I didn't make enough sails. I'm very bad at honestly estimating how much it's going to take. And there we go, that's generally what I want for the fan bits. And added some shafts in with these brackets just to give it a little bit of structure in the middle. Now luckily, in theory, all these wind sails should glue themselves to each other, but the rest of it won't. So I'm just going to try and glue as much as I can, and hopefully it should all just work. And for the moment of truth, if we right click on this, it is now working. Perfect. Now, is that rotating in the right direction? For some reason, I actually never know which direction it's meant to go. I feel like this is the right direction, but if it is the wrong way, someone tell me please. Now that we've got that going, let's clean up some of the inside of here and bring down the power to the bottom so we can actually start processing the materials we need. Also, yes, there was a skeleton here, and that's why I have an arrow in my arm. Okay, so I've added a couple fake floors. Obviously, there's not really enough room in this windmill to actually put anything on these floors. Let's start bringing down our power from our windmill to the ground floor, and we can add some structure to this just to make sure it doesn't look like it's too floaty. And I'm going to actually want to crush a few things in here, including sugarcane for sugar, wheat for wheat flour, and also rice panicles to make rice. And now I haven't actually set up a rice and sugarcane farm yet. We'll be adding one of those later. But for now, let's get in a belt and make ourselves a few more gearboxes, because I'm going to want to place, I think, 3 of these here. Make sure they're all facing the right way. Back to naturality, I think I'm going to actually need to use some chain caisson drives here, and then use 1 vertical gearbox along with just a normal shaft. And then I need to just go back home and make some crushing wheels. And one day soon, maybe I'll actually have this stuff automated, but for now, we're doing it manually again. And there we go. And if we just attach these 2 here, anything going on this belt should now be crushed by these crushing wheels. Of course, we'll place some andesite casing down. And I think the way I'm actually going to get the produce from like the barn and stuff is I'm going to have some kind of van at some point, probably pull up outside here. Hopefully we can get a train station and a post box up here, then just put it straight through these crushers and into some kind of separate storage system. Perhaps what I might actually do is actually extend the windmill to the side a little bit, have like a side building, raise up the ground and knock down this building, just so we can have an area for storage. Honestly, I think this is honestly the main thing that I need in here. I don't think I need to overcomplicate this. I don't need to make separate crushing wheels for all the different types. I think they can just go through here and into their own bits of storage. So I should probably decorate this floor and lighten it up a little bit in here because it is a bit dark. There we go, a relatively simple design. Put some hay bales around, kind of covered up the crushing wheels a little bit better. And I think once I get some rice going, I may put these bags of rice around in this room as well to go along with the hay bales. But I like it how it is at the moment. Now, the other thing I also did was I built out the cliff underneath the windmill, and I gave ourselves enough space next to the windmill to add, I think, a little storage house next to it. Honestly, this is like my first time doing like a proper like cliff face kind of thing. I've generally tend to avoid these kind of styles because I'm honestly too scared to do them, but maybe I shouldn't be. I think it actually turned out really cool looking. I might have used some leaves a bit excessively, but I still like it regardless. Now, I think for the storage building, I don't want it to be that wild of a building. I think something quite simple will do just fine. I'm going to leave a little bit of an air gap in between the two of them, mostly because I feel like the blades of the windmill might get a little bit too close to the potential roof of this. If we more or less build all the way to the edge, and we can use the same stone as we did for the main windmill. In fact, actually, I think I am going to make this building a little bit wider. The pure reason that I think only a little bit of storage will be able to fit in there and nothing else, so let's give ourselves at least a little bit more room. And then I kind of forgot to record the rest, but it's a relatively simple building, nothing too wild. Pretty much just enough room to hold on to a relatively large vault. And I've opened up the wall here to bring a belt through because I think I'm going to try and bring everything from down there into the storage over here. So let's throw down our belt. And luckily there is just enough room underneath this to still walk past. And I'm going to have to think of how I'm actually going to get up over there. I think as long as we kind of just follow the ground over here. With a little bit of fiddling out later, we've got the belt heading out into the storage room. It's a bit messy, but it's really not the end of the world, honestly. And that belt will go into a bit of a smart chute and then into the item vault, mainly because it doesn't actually line up. Although maybe we can actually raise this up by one so that it's kind of standing on stilts. That way you don't have to bob over the smart chute. And then maybe we can also pull from underneath it as well. But I am once again out of bolts. I really need to spend some time making a bunch of bolts, to be honest, for both this and for the wall inside of the barn. But yes, I'm liking how that little storage building is looking. I'll have to add a bit of a pop-up here and probably add some more leaves and other bit of decorations. But what I'm actually going to go and do instead is build some greenhouses. Now, I don't have all the crops like I said earlier, and I would like to start growing some pumpkins, melons, sugarcane, rice, and some berry bushes, but I didn't want them to kind of just be out here on the field. Pumpkin and melon can't actually be harvested by the combine harvester anyway, so I think what I'm going to do is actually build 4 greenhouses this side of the field and bring the roads around each side of the field to meet them. Honestly, just so those roads actually have a reason to exist. Now these greenhouses are going to be relatively wide, so I'm probably going to have to do some landscaping, help flatten the land, hopefully not get too close to this river. Mainly because this is actually a very nice natural river. I feel like even though Terralith does change the landscapes a bit, that the rivers don't tend to get this wide, so I'm trying to at least hold on to that. But let me flatten out this land and I'll get back to you in a second. Okay, there we go, all nicely flattened out. And I've brought the road round to this side so we can access the greenhouses easier. Although I do still need to do it around this side, so. But let's actually get a design down for these greenhouses. And I think I want to use mostly just a bunch of spruce logs kind of separated out into sections so that we can have 3 wide farms on each side of the greenhouse. If we just build up a bit of a frame, something on those lines with perhaps some logs sticking out, then I think I actually want to use some of this andesite wool with the weathered panes of glass from Create, which I love the look of and I think works really well for a greenhouse. But actually, I think I want the top to come in a little bit more than it currently does. And we can throw some glass in there as well. And there we go, I think that's how I generally want the front to look like. Throw in some spruce fences and kind of came up with how I want the roof line to look a little bit. Although I'll definitely be having a lot more glass from here on out. And I'll probably have these come down in like 4 wide partitions, I think. Keep using our mix of andesite and iron panes. And then I think I'm going to use the full-size blocks just to bring it up to the top here. Okay, there we go. I think that's just the general design I want to have. We're going to proper glass roof in, a little bit of support on these inner parts, and then I just need to pretty much duplicate that all the way back to around about over here. And that should give us plenty of room inside of each greenhouse. There we go, there is our first greenhouse done. Now I think what I should probably do is grab a schematic of this and make sure that we actually do get the buttons and stuff that are sticking out the sides. And then I essentially just need to do this pretty much 3 more times on each side. So if we get our cannon down, then pretty much place it more or less directly next to this one. Be far away enough. I did give us some extra room, even though this does make this side a little bit too high versus the river. Though I think if I do still have it this far out, I think I'll do what I did over at the windmill, which is create my own little cliff face kind of thing. And I think that would look quite nice next to the river. But actually, let's move this one further away. That way we can still probably have a small path down here as well. We'll grab our clipboard and actually see what we need from this. And we can ignore the short grass, but we need everything else. But this shouldn't take me too long, and I'll have to times this by 3. And there we go, there is our 4 greenhouses in, and now we've just got to fill them with all the different types of crops. I think I'll start with some sweet berries, as I already have some of those on hand. What I'm doing here real quick is actually replacing the ground here with some massive stone bricks, just so we have a pathway through the greenhouses. So I think what I'm going to do is actually use gantries again. And I kind of like the idea of actually having the gantry going over everything, just so it's all visible. It's not always very fun to have everything hidden underneath the ground. Now I am going to need a bunch of harvesters, which we can't make right now, so let's head back home again and make a bunch of andesite alloy and iron. Now sweetberry bushes aren't very tall, so we only need to really make it about 1 high of our harvesters. I'm just going to come straight down off of these and place our harvesters on. Although apparently they can't attach to girders, so I guess we're just going to use some andesite casing. Now luckily I don't think our berries need anything specific. I think they are pretty simple. I don't even think they need water. Actually no, I definitely know they don't need water. I think what I'll do is place in our redstone contacts here on each side. I am going to need a gear shift for this. And probably just place it on the end here. And I guess one thing I didn't kind of think about with this is actually how I'm going to power this. Perhaps I'll block out this back door here and place some power at the back. That way I can just have some chain drives coming all the way down. And I think just use a little simple water wheel for now. And that should be enough energy, honestly. And all we need to do is just place some redstone links on our redstone contacts, and I'll just make them both sweetberry slots. We'll make this one a receiver and do the same thing. If I make sure all these are glued up, make sure that we have a powered toggled latch, as I just remembered that I need that for this. And with the redstone set up, it is now very slowly moving. I know this is a temporary power setup, but maybe I should speed it up a little bit. That's at least working. Now we need to just empty this out. I think what I'll do actually is maybe stick a hole on the side here so that we can pull out from the contraption. And then I can just replace this last block over here so they actually attach up when they're moving by. And I'm not entirely sure how I want to move items from the greenhouses over towards our main storage area. I might honestly just put a belt straight underneath the fields into the silos, but perhaps I can build a vehicle at some point to come around here and just pick it up and take it over to the barn instead. So let's place our portable storage interface there. That should still be glued. And I'm also actually going to replace this casing here with a barrel, just so we actually have some storage on the contraption. So now if I turn this back on, it should start collecting all the berries that we need. And I'll leave this just set up for now with just a barrel, and hopefully that should be enough until we have a proper system to collect everything up. So I'm giving in and I'm actually going to hook this up after all. I think we only really need it to be about 64 though. It doesn't need to be super fast. And that should hook up, although I think it was mostly empty. I must admit, I didn't actually realize how quickly these berries grew, so making it a little bit easier to actually place these down with any extra berries that we're getting from this. But now I need to more or less do the same thing in all the other greenhouses as well. Perhaps slight different changes to the design depending on what crop it is. Okay, so for this one I think we're going to do sugarcane. And this one's going to be ever so slightly different in that I'm going to want to have 2 layers of our harvesters, because obviously they can grow a little bit taller and we don't want to harvest the bottom layer. And pretty much just set up the same system as we did in the sweetberry room. Need to grab some water so that we can start placing in our reeds. And after placing in all our water, I'm going to cover it up with some slabs. Should waterlog them, but still mean that we can place sugarcane on top. And then we can actually place in our sugarcane. And if we make sure this is all glued together, after giving that some power, it should now all be working perfectly. Once again, I've added a temporary storage solution here until I figure out how I want to attach everything. Okay, so I went ahead and made our 2 other farms, including our rice farm and our pumpkin and melon farms. This one's a little bit different in that we use some drills because the way it normally harvests doesn't work, but each kind of melon stem and pumpkin stem has 2 sides to potentially grow on, so That should at least maximize the growth here. And then the rice, of course, has to be inside of water. And once it grows to a certain height, it's then harvested by our normal harvesters. And it's going to take a while for me to get enough rice. I'm probably going to maybe have to use a bunch of bone meal on this just to speed it up a little bit, because our fields are looking a little bit empty at the moment, but it works at least. And then in terms of our portable storage interfaces, I ended up moving them to this side. As you can see, they kind of just connect up there. Not currently attached to any kind of storage because I'm thinking of potentially putting a conveyor belt through these and like just adding maybe like a vault here or something. And then I think we can have a van come along and pick up everything here. But there we go. At least we have 5 more crops now actually added to our farm, ready to make even more foods with Farmer's Delight. Now I think I'm going to decorate this area a little bit, probably add a bit of a road up here and sort out this rather awful cliff face. Hopefully I can again use the design that I used over near the windmill. There we go. I simply just put a bunch of dirt down and some paths along with our new little tiny cliff face. And it also meant I didn't have to actually mess with the river, so that's all good. Did also make one slight change to this farm as I realized that gantries can be blocked by like pull-on blocks. So when any pumpkin or melon grew, it got stuck on it. So I opted to put some drills on the back of it as well. But I think what I'm going to do next, head back over towards the windmill area and to start looking into making a bakery. Now the main thing that the bakery is going to do is essentially turn produce from our windmill into dough, and then I can also turn that dough into bread and pasta, which I realize is not what bakeries typically do, but that's what ours is going to do. And in the future, it may also make cakes, but at the moment, milk is not working properly with the createmod stuff. So I'll leave that out for now. Okay, so I flattened some land over here next to our windmill. I think we're just going to start building. For the bakery, I mostly wanted to use our spruce logs again to kind of fit with our windmill, as well as a mixture of stone and reusing our hell oak wood, along with some windows and a little green canopy, and then more or less continue that on the side with a bit of a deep slate roof and some windows on the top part, although I did have to do those a couple of times because I couldn't decide where I wanted them to be. I then repeated that same thing on the other side. And then around the back of the building, I set up some stairs to go up to the second floor, which I'm probably going to use as some form of storage rather than any kind of housing. And then finished off with some azalea leaves. And there we go. There is the exterior of our bakery mostly done. And I've also put in a little basic interior as well, where we have like a counter of sorts, and then also the kitchen area in the back, which we're going to put all our contraptions in. Now, the general idea is that we're going to have a van come along at the front here and probably place stuff into a post box back here. So if we get a simple belt in, and the first thing we need to do is actually take our wheat flour and place it into a basin with some funnels on each side with a mixer on top. And I'm going to have to place some water into that mixer. And luckily we don't need to overcomplicate things. I can just put a bit of a water source down here and then use a pump coming straight up from underneath into our basin. We'll just have to hook that up to power. Then after that, I want to actually split this belt into two. And I'm going to mostly do that by using a brass funnel, but making sure nothing passes through the center one. That way we can use our slicer from the Slice and Dice mod with some knives, and that will cut up the dough into pasta. And then I'm going to need a fan. I think I'm going to place our fan here and a campfire here. And hopefully I can pull the heat towards the fan and cook anything here into bread. Then place some barrels here and some funnels going in. And I'll make sure to set a filter on these to make sure that they only go in once they're processed. Honestly, just now, I think I just need to hook up everything to power just to make sure it's all working the way that we want it to. And there we go. There is everything powered up. It was a little bit of a tight squeeze back here. I probably should have made this building bigger. I guess that's what I get for building a building first before building the create stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually grab some wheat, take this wheat and plop it into our windmill to begin with. And then that produces wheat flour and seeds. And obviously typically that'll go into our storage, but I take this down here and just throw some onto our belt. In fact, let me get rid of this brass belt first, just so it doesn't move straight out. There we go, it's starting to mix. And then one went through into here. So let's sort out some of these things. Place that on the basin to make sure it's only making that. And then I also actually should probably remove this brass belt, put the dough in, although apparently the slicer is going the wrong way, so let's put in another gearbox to fix that. And then that turns into pasta. You can then grab and place into a filter on a brass belt. And then the same thing on this side. We'll cook this bit of dough into bread, then grab our brass funnel and put in the bread into that as well. So now we should just be making both pasta and bread. So let me throw these bits of dough back in real quick. And yeah, perfect. Honestly, the slicer noise is actually very satisfying. But that's pretty much the gist of what I want to do in this bakery. I think maybe once we actually have cakes, I might have to do it here, or maybe even upstairs. We'll have to see. And then I'm going to have to figure out also how to get the bread and pasta to the restaurant once we actually build that. But yes, I finished off a little bit of decorating. I added some stoves from Farmer's Delight and some stock tickers because I think I want to be able to at least pull from this storage from here rather than having to have a mill from the restaurant. So we have our stock ticker here as our kind of checkout thing, but the actual real stocker ticker is down here. The villagers have to be right next to them, so this one doesn't work that way. But anyway, that's all I have time for this week, but we did get quite a lot done today. We got our windmill going, our bakery, as well as our brand new greenhouses all the way over here. I just now need to finish the other buildings I would like to make and also start building some vans and stuff to actually move the items around. But anyway, thank you everyone for watching and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye for now.